Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Every car dealer these days is aware of how powerful data can be to their business, and having the right data can supercharge sales. Now, one firm which passionately believes that's the case is JATO Dynamics. And joining me to speak more about this is Paul Hilson, who's head of Saleslink for the company. Hello, Paul.
Hi, James. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Now, lovely to have you on. Just before we dive in, I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of viewers will have seen you before. They'll be familiar with your face. Of course, you were previously at Automotive Transformation Group, but in September 2022, October 2022, you left to join JATO. Now, JATO is a name that I'm very familiar with. OEMs are very familiar with JATO, of course, but probably dealers are probably less
That's
familiar with
fair
it.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit more about JATO and what it does.
Well, yeah. I mean, the business has been established. Well, it'll be 40 years next year. So back in 1984, big business globally. I mean, we work with OEMs all over the world. So our data services are used in 52 countries around the world, supporting OEMs, leasing companies. And we will be supporting a lot of dealers. They just generally won't know about it, James. You know, there's applications across dealerships that are powered or using JATO data or services in some way or form, but the dealers often don't know that it's our data because it's delivered through the leasing application or the OEM tools that they're using. But we're trying to change that, of course. That's why I joined the business as head of Saleslink, which is more of a dealer focused initiative for JATO.
Well, let's get stuck into that then. So Saleslink, I mean, it is one of JATO's products and services, and you're the head of it, obviously. And so you're the perfect man to tell us a little bit more about it then.
Well, yeah, and as you said, it's an insights tool built for car dealers. So we provide dealers with a market view of what's going on in their market around vehicle sales, transaction prices, option uptake, discounts, and prices. So dealers can log in and look at any of those metrics around electric vehicles, the brands they sell, the brands they don't. And we're collecting that data from DMS feeds on behalf of a number of major dealer groups. So the beauty and one of the key things for JATO is real data and up-to-date data, and that's what we're offering through Saleslink for our dealers. So.
I mean, there are plenty of dealers out there who don't use any form of data insight tools at all, do they? Because they just like to rely on their expertise and their knowledge of their customer base. But really, to be a great dealer, successful dealer these days, a dealer does need some form of insight tool to really understand the market, the general market, because it's so diverse now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of insights tools, especially focused around used car data.
Mm.
But new cars is important, and when we look at the volume of new vehicle sales today, certainly the sort of offers and the discounts that are in market, especially at the moment with September plate change, there's a lot of different incentives out there in the market. There's a lot of data that dealers should be using to better inform decisions, and it might be something simple as am I speccing the right options on vehicles compared to other dealers in the market? And that might be a training issue at the dealership rather than a sales related issue. So those sort of insights, and because we've got proprietary spec data, we know all of those equipment options for OEMs. So it combines the assets really well, the dealer's own data as well as our market data, to give actual kind of insight on trends and what's going on in the market. So which they don't normally get, for certainly not for competitor brands anyway, of course, which is another big thing. So
yeah. I mean, you mentioned something interesting there about options, dealers having to spec cars, multitude of options. I mean, that's one thing that we've seen post COVID, isn't it? Manufacturers tightening down the number of options and specifications available, because times have changed, haven't they? And consumers' tastes have changed. So, if dealers have got the right tools around them, they've got a better understanding of all of that, haven't they?
But and it's the combination of what is standard specification in terms of equipment and what are sort of actual optional extras, and understanding the difference between those is really important. And we're seeing it. I mean, even just looking today the average option take rates on electric vehicles have more than doubled over the last 12 months. People are picking more options on those vehicles, whether it's upgraded wheels, upgraded color options, and other metrics. But then in parallel to that, the level of discount being given on electric vehicles is a lot higher this year than it was last as well. So balancing that is really difficult for dealers, and they need data to make some of those decisions and think about their strategies. So absolutely, I mean, you're right when you look at option values from OEMs over the last year or so.
So let's dive a little bit more into Saleslink then. So just give us an idea of the types of insights dealers can get from the tool.
Yeah, well, we just mentioned a few there. So looking at especially things, I find the option take rate data personally very, very interesting to look at, even though I'm not a dealer myself, but understanding the behavior and the competitiveness of those options across other brands is really important, and other dealers selling the same brands as those dealers. Discount levels is of course really kind of crucial, because it might only be £300 or £400 discount difference between you and other dealers, but when you model that out over thousands of cars a year, it can be very impactful in terms of sales rate. So all of that data is in the application. I mean, we've got we've got over 100,000 transactions year to date and that's for the UK, but we're across 5 markets. So we've got about 500,000 transactions this year across Europe. We're getting close to over 3 million transactions in the platform over the years that we've been running Saleslink. So there's huge data, not just on current sales, but of course historical data, which lends itself really well to dealers thinking about what used cars they should be stocking and which options on those used cars would be more in demand today for consumers based on what was popular when that car was built 2 or 3 years ago. So.
Yeah. I mean, does the tool offer information on the types of cars that are going to be popular in any particular area? Because I always find that absolutely fascinating. That you might have a sort of quite generic car, but in a certain part of the country, it's less popular than in another part of the country.
Yeah, I mean, we get asked about this from dealers all the time. It's actually we've got the geographical breakdown of vehicles, but keeping anonymity of the competitive data in the product is something we're really precious about, understandably. So we can't ever allow dealers to identify data that originates from any other single dealer in the product, because that would break the confidentiality and the terms that we've got, of course, with the dealers that are using the tool. So we've got to balance that, whether we do some urban and rural segmentation, or we simply do a kind of as the crow flies radius of the dealership. But of course, we understand the location of all of those sales. And there's a lot of data that we see internally in JATO that does lend itself well to, again, which options people are speccing on certain vehicles in certain areas, color popularity, trends in certain areas. It's all really interesting when you, and that's what, of course, the OEMs want to understand, and other companies want to understand that data at an international level. So,
So how does Saleslink integrate into a dealer's sort of current systems they might currently have?
Well, it all relies on it's free for dealers to use, so they could just log into Saleslink, create an account, and the market data is there for them to look at. Of course, putting their data alongside it as a comparison of how I perform versus the market just requires a data feed, a typical DMS feed of transaction data, and we've got those feeds in place. So we simply look to get the dealer's consent to set that feed up, and then we run that, James, weekly into the product. So we're constantly refreshing the data in the tool, but they don't have to have a feed. If they don't want to have their data in comparison, they can just log in and they've got access to the market data in Saleslink. And we make it free for dealers, both whether they share their data or they don't. The tool's free for dealers, because crucially for us, it's understanding that transactional behavior. And of course, the OEMs that want to understand that transactional behavior at a multi-market level is really the value for us in terms of that data. So we see it as we call it a reciprocal exchange for dealers, their data for our data, if you like, in terms of that market view.
So how does it, because there are plenty of tools and services on the market, but how does yours differ from those?
Well, we talked earlier about there being a lot of used car insights tools, whereas not so popular in terms of new. And the key difference for us is we've got JATO's core business is our proprietary specs data, right? So having that depth of equipment and option data, every individual option, every individual price, we've got a core asset to match that dealer's data to, which allows us to provide the average data around discounts, option take rates, performance, and compare it to the market. So, I think with any insights tool, they've got different purpose for different types of reporting that dealers want to conduct. But when you're matching that to your proprietary data in the same way, for example, Auto Trader would with its used vehicle insights tool, you've got a really powerful asset that dealers can take advantage of. And it's just finding the insights in the data to make some of those decisions that they might want to make, whether it's training or looking at the general sales performance of one location versus another. The insights are there for dealers to use in different ways.
Yeah. So lastly, Paul, I mean, what's in store for the future? Because I can imagine JATO is a constantly evolving business. It's constantly got its finger on the pulse of what's next. So presumably you're constantly evolving everything there.
Well, we've got a few things in store, mainly around AI, and that's obviously not a new topic. But I mean, you'll know as a journalist, writing content, especially in this industry, is very difficult.
Yes.
It's not easy to be creative all the time in terms of dealer for content creation, and it's even harder, of course, for a lot of dealers. They don't have a James Batchelor running their marketing or content team. So
lucky them.
Yeah. So one thing we, of course, want to focus on is, and AI requires training, right? You have to teach an AI model and allow it to learn. And of course, if it can learn from data, the sort of data JATO holds, then we can create a really clever AI engine that can support dealers. So we've got two key things in store over the next 3 or 4 months. The first is AI content generation built within the tool so dealers can produce, whether it's website landing page content or an email newsletter or a blog post, connecting to our data set, combining their transaction data, market data. So rather than a generic news article about the Ford Puma, they can actually talk about what colors are popular, what trims are trending, or the AI will do that for them rather within the tool. And then lastly, I think going back to my ATG roots, if you like, and dealer websites is actually, why rather just have that data supporting dealers at an insight level? Why can't it be used for consumers and car shoppers on dealers' websites? So again, taking bits of that trend analysis, what colors are popular, what engine sizes, what features cars have, and serving them as consumer-facing elements on dealers' websites, all powered by JATO. So we've got a lot of things in the pipeline, all around sort of just supporting dealers in times to sell cars better, supporting them in terms of advertising, and AI, of course, is something that a lot of businesses are focused on. But JATO as a data business is a big part of our future. So.
Wow. It sounds exciting. You're definitely joining it at the right time. So.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, still a lot more to do, but we're like I say, nearly a year in the business. I had a great time, of course, with the guys at ATG, but it's been a roller coaster year, really focused on building out the products. But yeah, 2024 is going to be a big year for us, so we're really excited.
Fantastic. Well, we'll look forward to checking in again soon and hearing how these developments are taking shape. But for today, Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's great. Thanks for having me, James. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.